All right, so we're going to look at modifying that last program we just wrote. Pull up the example here. So we just wrote center string that accepted a word and centered it in a string of length 10. I now want to write a new method, also called center string, that accepts a word and a size as a parameter. So it has an additional parameter of size, where size represents the length of the new string to be returned. So we're going to let the method that's calling center string determine the size of the new string. So this is an example of method overloading in Java, and where we use the same name, but the number and type of parameters determines which method gets called. And then before we do it, I want to scroll down here and just, imagine that we have both methods written already. So, if we have already a center string that just accepts one parameter word and a center string that accepts a word and a size, if these were both written, which one is more complicated? The one on the right is more complicated, and in fact, the one on the left that just accepts the word really is the same code as the one on the right, except the size that would be sent would be the default size, or 10 was our last example. So when they're both written, the first example is a special case of the second method where the size is 10, the default size. So when we switch over to Eclipse, I'm going to actually modify what we have to change it. Instead of writing the method center string that accepts a single word, I'm going to rewrite it as a method that accepts the word and the size. So I'm going to go back to Eclipse. And rather than changing this program as is, I'm going to save it. I think it's already been saved. I will copy the entire program. And then I'm going to create a new, let's just close it. I'll create a second version of this, a new class called CenterText2. I'm not going to click on the public I won't, oh, it wants to know the source folder, sorry. Chapter 4, source code. I'm not going to click on public static void main because I'm just going to create an empty class. And then I'm going to paste in my previous code and go back up here to change it to CenterText2. Get rid of this one down here. Now I'm going to modify the function that we've already written, center string. So instead of just sending the word hot, let's send hot, and let's send a size in here, 12. So in this method header, I'm going to add a parameter integer size. And now I'm going to modify the code to utilize size instead of this default length. So if word length is greater than or equal to size, return the word. Now to figure out the number of spaces, replace the default length with size. Spaces equals size minus word length. And then we pad the front, pad the back. Everything else should be the same. So I'm going to run this to make sure it's working. So first was size 12, with the word hot. And that would leave 9 spaces. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in front, 4 behind. So that looked like it worked. What if I make it, 20 spaces? 1, 2, 3, I can't count, but there's a lot. I think it worked. What if I did 9? I'm not sure what's going to happen if we have an odd number there. 3 and 3, so that worked. We go to 10. Should be 4 and 3, so that seems to work. We go down to 2. Just returns the word hot. So this seems to be working. I'm going to jump back over to my original, and now, so because now center string, so now I need to define the center string where it just has a single parameter word. So that, once you've made the harder one, is super easy because, I mean, not super easy might be the wrong way to say it, but it's super straightforward because I can set up the method header, public static string, has the same name, center string, but it just has one parameter, string word. And now we want this method to just call the other method. So what we return here will just be the value that gets returned by calling center string and sending it word and the default length. So notice this logic. I didn't add a new method to my entire class. I modified my method to my original method to handle an alternate size because I recognized that when I want to send just the string in, I want that size to always be 10. So the simpler method, the one with just one parameter, is just a special case of the harder method. So I modified my code to first set up the harder method and then wrote a new method for the simpler one that just calls the more complex version of center string. And this is an example of how we would overload. You know, one common mistake is that you would leave both methods, you know, and then there would be a lot of repeated code because, you know, we had already written this method center string and it's all this code in here. So we don't need to repeat all that code. We just modified that code so that it could have a variable size, and then we invoke it by calling it with that default length. Technically, we should check this. So you know, how can I check this? Let's call it with the word hot 12, and then let's call, after this print statement, we'll call it again. Not print line, sorry. Sorry. Word, you can just reset word to equal center string. Let's send it the word hello. That has 5 letters, so there should be 3 spaces before and 2 after. And then we'll print it. So what I'm testing now is that both methods still work. I don't know if I introduced you guys to my cat. He's trying to get up there. There's my cat. Yep, going away. Okay. He loves to crawl around the computer. All right. So we send it in with the word hot. That has the 5 spaces followed by the 4 spaces, totaling 12. And then we do it again with the word hello, but we use the default, just sending the word hello, so that should have 3 before and 2 after. And again, those are supposed to all be padded with spaces, just in terms of us being able to visualize and see it more quickly. We just changed it, all the spaces to dashes, and everything worked out better. Okay, so again, there's an example of overloading. Key example there being that to do the harder method, we just change the default, where the occurrence of default length in there to this size that came in as a parameter. And that modification was really just changing those 2 values here and here. And then starting and making a new method that just got the one parameter of word and having that method call the more complicated version with the second parameter being the default length. We could do this again. We could have a harder version that had a third parameter, and then we would modify center string with the 3 parameters to be the hardest function, and then the one that required 2 parameters would call it, and the one that required 1 would call the one with 2, and then you call the one with 3. So they would sort of cascade. And again, it's all set up to not have repeating code. All right, I'll close off there. Maybe we can give you one last view of snow-covered Seattle. Hopefully this will, I mean, it's nice, but I think I'm done with it. So hopefully we'll be going away soon.